Hello, and welcome back to Paranormal NL Podcast. I'm your host and founder, Jen Noseworthy, located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. Thank you for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf. Watch and listen to PNL Podcast every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on UPRNTalkRadio.com with a YouTube live chat watch party with me, your host, Jen Noseworthy, and a few BOG team members. For tonight's Vampires episode on UPRN Seg number 73, I've got a special guest waiting backstage from Pennsylvania and two co-host guests waiting backstage from Texas and North Carolina, who I'll bring on shortly. Now it's time to grab your favorite spooky spring drink, a few scary munchies, and get ready for the show tonight. Watch out for that April Fool's Day coming up soon. Paranormal NL Podcast is sponsored by the BOG team. It's a boots on the ground BOG team doing historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland, Canada. Now, if you find yourself coming back to the show and you like the content, smash that subscribe button. Gratitude, folks. It all helps. Grab your PNL Podcast and BOG team merch available on Linktree. Paranormal NL Podcast on TeePublic. All BOG team music heard in the intro and the exit is available for download and use on all social media and streaming music platforms. Now, PNL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. I want to give a shout out to introduce me to tonight's guest, and that was Mark Eddy from Third Eye Live Podcast. Now, both Bryan Bowden and Mark Eddy were on the show several different times in season 3 and season 4. Make sure you check out Third Eye Live. You're going to love Mark Eddy and Bryan Bowden. Now, let's bring on one of our co-hosts on stage tonight. Let's see. I'll bring Dr. Judd Burton on first. Hello. Welcome back, Dr. Burton.
Well, hello, Jen. It's good to be back.
Yes. Do you want to give a shout out to the UPRN folks listening and tell a little bit about yourself again?
Sure, always. Thanks for the opportunity. And my name is Dr. Judd Burton. I'm the Director and Senior Fellow of the Institute of Biblical Anthropology. I'm a historian and anthropologist by training and have written a number of books, and excited about tonight's topic because it's one that I've touched on in my writing and research.
Yes, you've done a lot on vampires. It's going to be a good show. Now, let's bring on the stage our other co-host, Rob Shelsky, coming in from North Carolina. Welcome, Rob.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's good to be here again. It's going to be a regular thing.
Yes, thanks for co-host, and I really appreciate it. So do you want to give a shout out to yourself for the listeners across the world on UPRN?
Sure. I'm Rob Shelsky. I'm an author. I've written over 82 books. I've been a MUFON field investigator. I dabble in all the esoteric things of cryptids, that sort of thing. And I really enjoy it. It's, fun to be curious and to try to learn new things.
It is indeed. And now we're going to bring on our main guest. Watch out. Here he comes. It's Dean Allan Conrad. Welcome, Dean.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Thanks for coming on, UPRN. So, Dean, do you want to tell the folks listening a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I worked for a daily newspaper many years ago as a reporter and columnist. And more recently, I've turned to writing fiction. And I have a trilogy of vampire novels and a book of short stories, all horror.
Nice. I think a lot of people really like vampires. Who wants to dig in first, Dr. Burton or Rob?
Well, I'd like to ask a question. Yeah. Do you believe vampires actually exist? I've always wondered that.
Oh, you're asking me? I
Yep.
think people, some people might have a psychological problem where they think they're a vampire, but as far as physical vampires who, the undead, I don't think they exist. They're more for our entertainment.
Well, I've been on a few dates that seemed like that, though.
Oh my God, that's funny. How so, Rob? You got to tell us now. Did they give you a huge hickey or did they actually bite you?
No, she was, honestly, she just was like the undead. She didn't respond. You couldn't carry on a conversation with her. It got really awkward. And then when we left, she gave me this big wet kiss on my neck. And it gave me the shivers. And that was the last time I saw her.
What do you think about that, Dean?
Well, she might be the exception. She might be a real one.
You might actually have dated a revenant, Rob.
Oh, yeah. It could have been a revenant. Yeah.
Or could it have been a demon succubus? Now, what's the difference in a vampire and a succubus? That got everybody quiet.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know that the two necessarily have to be mutually exclusive. I mean, there's a long, at least demonological tradition of linking incubi and succubi with a vampire spirit. The late Montague Summers, who wrote some of the seminal volumes in the history and lore of vampires, made that connection prolifically, and certainly the two works he wrote on vampirism, The Vampires, Kith and Kin, and The Vampire in Europe. But even in his other books on, let's say, witchcraft and werewolves, he touches on that very subject. So I don't know that. I think there's a lot of overlap in the subject matter. I don't know that the two are necessarily mutually exclusive.
Do you believe in vampires, Dr. Burton?
I do, but I think that there are tiers. I think Dean hit on the kind of vampiric subculture that certainly exists, where people believe that they have a need for blood, and certainly from an anthropological perspective, there have been ethnographic studies that have been done on these people, and so in one sense, you do have
a project on that, Dr. Burton. As a nurse, I'm thinking about people who are actually anemic. What do you think, Dean? And they actually need blood, let's say back in the Victorian times, and they thought, okay, let's go drink some blood and maybe I won't be so anemic. What do you think?
That's certainly a possibility. The Victorians were quite strange people when it came to their beliefs about death and mourning. So I think almost anything would be possible.
There are so many people who didn't know much about it, and maybe they tried that. Or I know Dr. Burton, the Nephilim, you studied that in great detail. Do you think they're somehow related? Didn't they eat people?
Well, yeah, that sort of circles us back to the connection between the demonic and the vampire, and at least the literature, whether you subscribe to the supernatural element of it or not. I mean, the folkloric and the literature is sort of replete with that sort of thing. And again, Summers was really the first scholar that I ever read that connected the Nephilim, these antediluvian giants, to the vampire. Because if you look at the apocryphal work of the Book of Enoch, part of the judgment on the Nephilim, the giants, is that they're destroyed in the deluge. Their bodies are destroyed, but their spirits survive, and they become kind of the demons of Second Temple period literature. And Summers connects their appetites for blood and physicality
Dean, don't they turn into bats, right? To me, that kind of sounds like a crossover. Like he said about them turning into phantoms. Isn't that what vampires do?
In some books and movies they can do that, and others they don't. They're pretty much bound to their physical human form. So it kind of depends on the mythos of the writer or the movie. What their abilities are. I think Bram Stoker actually gave the vampires quite a few powers that weren't part of the culture back then.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask you about that too. When it comes to their powers, what is true and what's not in your eyes?
Well, in mine is pretty much follows the general vampire knowledge or what people believe, but in my mythos, the vampire doesn't turn instantly or within a few seconds. It takes several days. His body goes through a metamorphosis, almost like a butterfly, and he's goes into a cocoon and comes out. And then if he's disturbed in some manner during that metamorphosis, he can be come out as malformed. And that's some of the characters in the first book of the trilogy.
Oh, okay.
And then these creatures hunt for the real vampires.
Have you written any nonfiction books about vampires?
I have not.
No. And how long have you been writing these books about it?
Oh, I would say probably about 6 years. I had some back surgery in 2001, and I was told not to do anything except walk. And so I thought I can't spend my whole day doing nothing. So I went back to writing, and that's when I actually started to write the short stories that I just published, or most recently published. And then I don't know if you have time. It's a very interesting story how I came to the vampire trilogy. But,
yes, tell us about it.
My son-in-law invited me to a professional baseball game, and we took his son, my grandson. And so when we went there, it was his team and his park, and he knew his way around and where to park and where to eat. So as we were driving in, I was looking around. I saw a man on the sidewalk, and he was in the fentanyl slump. He was a drug addict, and he had shot up, and he was passed out, but he was standing. And I had never seen that. And I said, like, holy smokes, look at that. And my son-in-law, who's a police official, looked in the side view mirror and he said, "Oh yeah, that's a heroin addict, and that's what they do if they get fentanyl in there mixed in with their heroin." And so then on the way to the park, we parked and we were walking, and I saw another man on the sidewalk, a different man, and and that really affected me. It really bothered me. And a week later, I probably couldn't have told you what the score was, but those two images of those two men bothered me. So, because they were completely
incapacitated.
Mercy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that's I said, well, who could hurt them? Well, vampires. And from there, the trilogy was, that was the genesis of the trilogy.
So the vampires were using the addict's blood.
Right, because they were easy prey, and they because the vampires didn't like the tainted blood with the drugs in them, they kept them in cages, and they let their blood clear, let them go through the horrors of withdrawal, and then when their blood was clear, they drained them.
That's so sad. A lot of homeless people, they don't have family, they don't know where they are, and they disappear, and nobody knows what happens to them.
Exactly, and that's one of the elements of this book, that when people disappear, they don't know, their friends don't know if they went into rehab, if there was an intervention, and their families took them away, and so they just disappeared. Wow.
Now, Rob, you were holding up your cat earlier. Do you think that cats are some kind of vampires? Because they know had a bite. Hey, Gene.
No, but they are demons. Let me tell you, they really are. That's Oliver, by the way.
Oliver. Hi, Oliver.
Yeah, that's Oliver. Yeah, he keeps getting up on my laser printer. I have to keep pulling him off of it.
Now, is it true? Like, I know there's a lot of different kinds of bats, right? There are bats who actually do feed on animals, right?
Vampire bats.
There are, yes.
Yeah. How about, do they feed on humans too? Do you think if there was a homeless person passed out on the street, they would go feed on them too?
Aren't
Given
they
the
tropics?
chance, I would imagine they would.
Yeah.
I thought they were on tropical islands, aren't they? Or are they? Or
this
South
sounds
America?
like the start of a zombie apocalypse war, because don't they cause rabies?
Well,
right?
well, they can. But, I mean, most of the sanguivore species of bats live in, like Rob pointed out, in tropical regions. But yeah, they would feed on people. We've got accounts going back of, sailors, for instance, had to be careful about sleep, because most of the crews would sleep out on decks back in the kind of the age of exploration, the early modern into the 18th century. Had to be into the 19th century too. Had to be careful about sleeping on decks in tropical regions, because those bats would feed on them. That's
not good. You wake up with something munching on you.
Well, cats do that too.
No, wake me up. It's feed me o'clock.
That's right.
So going back to the vampires, I'm interested in all, I guess the classical kind of stuff. So is it true, they don't see a reflection in the mirror, and they're not allowed in your house unless you invite them in?
That's supposed to be true. I think they were both elements that Bram Stoker introduced. So I think they were part of the folklore. Before.
Yeah. And then there's the wooden stake versus the what is it, Dr. Burton? Is it Silver Bullet, or is that a werewolf?
Well, the variety of apotropaics that were used against vampires varies from culture to culture. Dean's right. Stoker did, and he did invent a lot of attributes and dispatchments for vampires. He took inspiration from Eastern European folklore, but the means of dispatchment and keeping them at bay are as varied as the species of vampires themselves.
I think about like with the cross and stuff like that with the demons and how they're supposed to be afraid of the cross, and it kind of crosses over with vampirism, doesn't it, Dean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Demons are unholy and nasty, and so they would be, I'm sure, the cross would would revolt them.
Have you interviewed many people, Dean, about like vampires and that? Sorry, Rob.
That's okay.
No, not really, not vampires, because I had a lot of trouble getting people to read my various parts of my manuscript, because they say, "Oh, I just don't do horror," and they said, "If you had anything else, I'd be glad to read it." But so that was actually troublesome, and I thought, well, why am I going to do a horror novel if nobody is interested in it?
Well, you'd be surprised how many people do read horror. Rob, what were you going to ask?
Oh, I was going to ask, I just recently read an article where they dug up some people in eastern, I want to say Romania, in an old graveyard that they were moving or something, and they found people with stakes in them, and one had their head cut off, and they said this was typical when they thought they were vampires, where they put heavy stones on the grave. How far back does this go? Does that predate Bram Stoker? Have we always had this idea of a vampire and Bram Stoker just fleshed it out, or is this something that's always been this way?
Well, yes, it goes back, centuries. There were a number of things people did. They cut off the heads. They would turn the body not upside down, but face down to confuse a vampire. So instead of digging to the surface, it would dig further, deeper into the ground. They would put rocks in their mouths so they couldn't bite their ways to the surface.
Really?
They would drive stakes through their bodies to pin them into the grave. So there were a number of, they would burn the bodies, they would cut out the hearts. Some of the stuff was pretty gruesome, but they thought it was effective.
Do you think they killed them because they were vampires and then did this? Or do you think the people just died natural deaths and then they thought they were vampires, so they did this? I think
a lot of this treatment was post-mortem. I think a lot of people might have died of tuberculosis, so they were coughing up blood, and the people assumed that, if he's coughing up blood, he's drinking blood.
Does it go back further into ancient stuff? For example, I want to think about the mummies. If somebody thought that somebody was a vampire, I'm thinking, wasn't there some sort of a technique where you weren't mummified and they just threw you in there like that?
It's possible. I'm not that familiar with all the Egyptian processes, but I think
that would make a cool book.
Yeah.
That would be a cool book for you to write, an Egyptian mummy.
Well, I think they made a movie out of it called The Mummy.
No, that's not a vampire, though. I was thinking a vampire mummy.
But the thing that they buried, though, well, I'll let Dr. Burton speak. He's the ancient expert.
Oh, well, obviously, the Egyptians were obsessed with immortality, with the afterlife. So there's certainly the theme of rebirth and resurrection there. And I was kind of circling back to what we were talking about earlier about the means of keeping vampires at bay, and the connection with blood. Amongst other things, the Egyptians, and in fact, a lot of peoples in the ancient Near East, believed that garlic would ward off evil spirits. The Egyptians write about this. The Akkadians, the Amorite Babylonians, they all have literal spells and liturgies used in conjunction with either the consumption of garlic or the ritual placement.
Really bad breath, or did it actually work?
Well, I think again, I don't know that the two need to be mutually exclusive. You have bad breath, and you're going to ward off somebody, right?
And some people say if you eat enough garlic, you sweat garlic and actually smell like garlic.
Well, there may be an ethnobotanical theme here too, because we know now that garlic is a blood cleanser.
Yes,
it is, and we know that sort of via the lens of science, but
it's good for the heart.
Yeah, it's good. Generally, cardiovascular health is improved by the consumption of garlic. That's been borne out by all kinds of studies, and the ancients, came to that knowledge with a combination of observation and a supernatural worldview. But in terms of fodder for vampire stories, Egypt, I would think, would be a very fertile ground. I think Anne Rice, she did that. I think most of her ancient vampires actually came from Egypt.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. I had forgot about that. Yes, that's true.
Because they live in the dark, right? Like they like to be in the casket, shall we say? And the light, is that Bram Stoker, or is that more hold truth? I'm thinking it holds more truth, because when you think of spirits and evil spirits, they always say on Spirit Box, we like to live in the shadows. Turn off the light, so that way they can move around easier.
Well, there's a thought. You don't suppose vampires could be shadow people, do you?
That's the thing. Are they?
I hope not.
What do you think?
I don't know. Are shadow people just an image, or are they actually corporeal? That they are solid?
Evidence shows they're corporeal, at least in some cases. That
there is an entity
physically
called the Hat Man that is worldwide. Yep. That is as black as Rob's shirt, and when it moves around, it looks real, right? Maybe from another dimension or something. But why is it wearing a hat, a fedora?
Well, we interpret it as a fedora. It could be a sombrero. It is just a shadow, Sure. By the way, did you know Freddy Krueger was based on the Hat Man? The Freddy Krueger movies?
I never.
Is that right?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I did not know that. That's chilling.
Do vampires have claws too? And Freddy had big claws, didn't he?
Yeah, they were metal though, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fake.
Now, my vampires can extend their claws when they are hunting or they're about to dispatch some poor victim. But
okay.
And the same way with their teeth, their fangs, they can extend them.
Are your vampires kind of one-dimensional as far as their behavior? I mean, are they all evil, or are there any good vampires? Or, I mean, in your opinion, or in your books, did you?
Or are they all just really hangry?
They were, yeah, they're mostly bad. They don't form attachments very well. They don't love. They don't. The only thing now, again, in my mythos, it's a little bit different. The vampires are infected with a vampire disease that is all-consuming. So even after if they could drain a body, they would still instantly be thirsty again for blood, even though they couldn't hold anymore. So
a bunch of fat little vampires there, huh? I mean,
I wonder, could it have been some sort of weird blood infection, or were they infected by an animal like the chupacabra or something like that?
Well, they would be infected by the bite of another vampire, and that bite would infect them with the vampire disease that would take hold of it. And that's the disease would create this cocoon that would cover the vampire's body for 3 or 4 days, and then it would change the cells in the body to be dependent on this disease. So
like a zombie, hey? Like
pretty much so.
Like a virus.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. The concept of vampirism as a disease. Dean or Rob, both. I don't know if you guys remember Kathleen Ramsland's books on vampires. I believe she's a clinical psychologist, but she wrote a really good book called The Science of Vampires, where she sort of, from the perspective of biomedical sciences and forensics and some of these subfields try to tackle the concept of the vampire as a kind of disease. And what would be the kind of biomechanical and biological mechanisms that would make, superhuman strength possible, and how vampires, sort of broke the laws of physics. They were immortal because their existence was in a kind of form of anti-time, which is a concept that physicists are now trying to articulate better. So the sort of scientific or naturalistic disease aspects of vampirism are I would think would be fascinating as a fiction author.
What type of blood, Dr. Burton or Dean or Rob, do they drink? Certain kind of blood type? Is it Rh negative? What is it? With the aliens, Rob, don't they usually go after Rh?
I hope it's not Rh negative, because I am Rh negative.
It's a Cabernet or Chianti.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah.
What about a rosé?
Rosé's kind of Now, Shiraz. I would like to be a vampire that drank Shiraz.
What do you think about that, Dean? The blood types. Do you have a theory?
Well, my vampires, they will drink human blood. They can survive on animal blood because one of the vampires in the trilogy decides that he doesn't want to take any human lives. He was turned into a vampire reluctantly, and that's the name of the third book, The Reluctant Vampire. So he goes through the book trying to avoid taking human life, stealing blood from blood banks and hospital laboratories, things like that. But no matter when he runs into a human, he usually ends up killing them by accident.
He couldn't resist.
I'm sorry?
He couldn't resist.
Yes.
Temptation. I have another question. Where do vampires come from originally? And your book must have some kind of background as to how they originated, right?
Mine does not have an origin story, but some of the ones are in it are very old, centuries old. In fact, the one danced with Napoleon and was a minor nobility. So she does not like to do any work. She likes her victims brought to her. Now she can hunt herself, but in the first book, she's kind of dependent on these creatures that are malformed vampires who bring her victims.
Dr. Burton, I had a question for you too.
Shoot.
When it comes to the origin of vampires, didn't the biblical character Lilith, wasn't she considered like the mother of vampires or something? Well,
Lilith is a fascinating character. She shows up in Isaiah chapter 34 as that passage is usually translated terribly in the Hebrew. It's usually translated as screech owl, but if you look at it, it's rendered in the Hebrew as Lilith, which is cognate with the Lilu and Lilitu in Mesopotamian lore. But she, even in the ancient context, she's a creature that feeds on the blood of children and infants. Her position as sort of the queen of demons and Adam's first wife is actually a late antique or medieval Jewish kind of anachronism that's projected back onto the biblical text itself. But I mean, even in the original context, it's very clear that the audience that let's say the book of Isaiah was written to, the general ancient Near Eastern audience would have been very familiar with this creature. The vampire as a concept in the ancient Near East probably emerges from the Mesopotamian Absu, the abyss, where the old deified kings, the Rabbah, lived. There's a creature in Mesopotamian mythology called the Lamashtu, which is probably the oldest written account of vampirism that we have. But having said that, if we look at archaeological evidence from, let's say, cults of the dead, that certainly existed in prehistory, the roots of vampirism could arguably be found, in the the Middle Paleolithic or the Late Paleolithic.
So they actually
That far
went
back?
around hunting.
I think
them?
so. I think there's a case to be made for it. I mean, it's easier to look at. It's easier to look at Mesolithic and Neolithic sites like the Tas Templar stuff in Turkey, where they were. They had a skull cult that was very similar to what the Natufian culture in the Mesolithic Levant had, or they clearly were concerned with placating the dead and keeping them from coming back and stealing their resources, whether that was the grain that they were starting to grow or the life essence of the people that were growing the grain.
But what about cannibals? Could they have been vampires? Or even people who did human sacrifice?
I'm not sure I'd call them vampires.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they would be a vampire. If you don't mind, I met a girl years ago, and her name was Lilith, and she was introduced to me, and in Georgia, and I was only going to be in town for a few days, and this buddy of mine wanted me to take her out, and she was a very pretty girl, but I didn't know a whole lot about Lilith, but I knew she was a bad actor in the Bible, and so I thought, no, I think I'm going to pass on that.
Good call. You never know, right?
Yeah,
You could have
right.
some puncture holes on your neck somewhere.
Why would someone name their kid Lilith? After such a character?
I was just
I
going to
mean,
say, yeah. Well,
I
maybe
don't
they
know, but
didn't
I
know, right?
I actually had a friend from the town that I grew up in. Her middle name was Lilith,
Oh,
and
okay.
what was the irony was that they were staunch Christians, and I asked her mother one time, "Why in the world would you name your kid Lilith?" And she's like, I had no idea what it meant when I named her that. I just thought it was a pretty name.
Oh, no.
Well, it is kind of pretty. I mean, it's not an ugly name, but
It's
Well, a
not-
lot of people
it's-
use really like a flower,
Kind of
right?
lyrical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but people named their kids Jezebel for a while there too, and that's a really negative name for a girl, don't you?
Yeah,
think?
that's a strange one.
Yeah.
Now,
just,
Dean, you've got another book about, I want to say Mammoth. I'll bring that one up on the stage. Welcome to Mammoth. Do you want to talk a little bit about that one?
Sure, that's a collection of 11 short stories, and they all take place in and around the fictional city of Mammoth, which is named after a 40-foot thick vein of anthracite coal that I think might still be mined today. And it certainly helped fuel the industrial revolution in America, because the coal was mined and it was floated on barges down. This is before railroads were installed, down the Schuylkill River to Philadelphia, and then it was from there used in manufacturing in Philadelphia, and then transshipped to other countries.
What is it about mines that bring around so many paranormal and, I guess, horror type of stuff? Did that spark you to write that book?
Well, it was actually, it was my editor's idea to name it Welcome to Mammoth.
Oh, okay.
Because she said, all these stories are, set in and around this city of Mammoth. And she said, you ought to do something with Mammoth. And I said, well, how about like a billboard with like Welcome to Mammoth on it? And then that became the book cover. So
did that town, I guess all the libraries in town have that book?
I believe they do. And
I love the imagery there. It's reminiscent of Lynch's Twin Peaks. you know,
Yes.
where you get the
Yeah,
sign as you're coming
yeah.
into town.
Yes, it is. Now, Dr. Burton, don't you have some books in your hometown?
I did. I wrote a book called The Paranormal Big Country about the paranormal history of the region of Texas that I grew up in.
Fun. Love paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dean, what do you got in the background there? Are you growing some stuff there? I always like to look at the guest background. Nothing's off limits on my show.
Over here is a bookcase, and then there's this orange thing is just some empty containers that I probably should. I meant to move them for the broadcast, but
I thought you were getting ready with your seedlings because it's that time of year to start growing some stuff.
I used to do a lot of that, but not anymore.
Yeah. So tell us.
I have grandkids now, so.
Oh, the grandkids. Now, do you tell the grandkids stories about vampires?
My oldest one, who's 9, he's very proud of the fact that he has a copy of one of my books, and I autographed it for him. So, and he keeps it in his bedroom on a shelf, and he's starting to like paranormal things and creepy things. And it's kind of like I was. It scared me crazy, but I still couldn't look away. I had to be.
Well, when we were a kids, my grandfather, I guess he must have had some sort of dentures or something, but he would say, turn around, and then you'd turn your head back, and then he'd have them done in some kind of a crazy fashion that made him look like a vampire. And we don't know how he did it, but there was a certain part of his house where he would say that he would go through the wall, and you would turn around, and all of a sudden he'd be on the other side of the wall, and we could never figure it out when we were kids, right?
Well, how did he do it?
I don't know. I had to ask my brother. Still today won't tell me. So we grew up thinking that Pop was a vampire.
And this was in Texas?
No, this was here in Newfoundland. But this was just good fun, though, you know.
Yeah, sounds terrific. How to terrorize your children in one easy lesson.
No, we knew it was all baloney. I mean, he used to dress up for Santa Claus and stuff like that. I knew it was him because I knew his voice, right? So, but you know how it is with kids. You got to keep, going along with the flow.
And how old were you at the time that was happening? About what, 18, 19?
Oh my God, no.
I'm kidding.
Jeez Louise. No, probably like double digit age or below that, I'm sure.
It's all starting to make sense now. I understand your personality so much better.
Why am I into such weird stuff? Hey, no, it's not weird. It's interesting. Let's talk about it, right? But from a nursing standpoint, you get to see so many different weird things and weird diseases and stuff, and you wonder, oh gosh, you watch that movie. What is it with Brad Pitt? Zombies? What was it called? Zombie Apocalypse?
World War Z. It was based on the
World
book.
War
Yeah.
Z.
Yeah.
So, Dean, can a vampire know who's infected and who's not when he's looking for blood? Can he walk up behind you and smell your blood and right?
How did that movie end? I never watched it all the way through. How did that movie end? Good or bad?
Oh, Judd, I'll let you tell that.
I want to say that
I know what happened.
They found I can't remember exactly. I want to say that they found a cure, but
Here's the thing. He saw
Jen.
a girl in the crowd, and all the zombies were going past the girl and didn't even look at her. And he said, that's, ground zero, patient zero. So we found her, and she was infected with this really weird disease, and they didn't want to bite her because then they would get sick. So in order to do the cure, he went into this lab and shot himself up with all this disgusting stuff. And of course, he could walk through the zombies because the zombies didn't want to bite him because they knew he was sick. So what do you think about that, Dean? Do you think that vampires, when they walk amongst people, even, you said addicts in the street, do they know, okay, this person is sick, this one's not, I'll have this one for lunch?
My vampires didn't discriminate that much. They did have a very acute sense of smell, so they couldn't say, well, you have O positive or you have O negative blood, but they would they could track somebody by blood, and one of the vampires does that in the novels. Tracks a bad guy by the scent of the smell that he leaves in the air, and but they did not like, at least my aristocratic vampires did not like tainted blood tainted by drugs. So that's why they put the victims in cages and let their blood clear for several weeks, and then.
Here's a question. We're talking about cryptids. Would a vampire go after a Bigfoot or a werewolf, and who would win?
The werewolf would win.
Why is that?
Because they just shred you, don't they? I mean, they just rip you apart.
Yeah, but so did a vampire's got like...
What was that last part, Rob?
A laugh track, would you know?
Yeah. That's a great question. I if it was, hey, look, I'd watch that on streaming. I mean, if that was a pay-per-view event.
I was just trying to say, I'd pay money to see that.
Yeah.
But Dean, couldn't a vampire just fly away like Batman?
That's possible. Yeah, he could do that where the other two, Bigfoot and the werewolf, couldn't. Although some people believe that Bigfoot is paranormal and can change and disappear. So
I don't think he can. I think he can just cloak himself. I don't think he can like poof disappear. Because you can still smell him. You'll still smell him.
I was going to say Bigfoot.
Yeah. Smell-o-vision.
Yeah. They really need to take a bath or something.
Well, maybe the vampire would be turned off by the so-called the
smell.
The stench.
Maybe.
Yeah. How many books have you written, Mr. Conrad? Total. How many have you written?
I have 4, and I'm working on a 5th.
And you've been
can you
for
give us
how
a
long?
little tidbit about your 5th one?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, this one is a kind of a mainstream novel. It's about a college student, the relationship between a college student, his father, and his girlfriend. And I call it the summer of our discontent rather than
winter
of our discontent, which
actually isn't it a season? This is the season of our discontent, the Shakespeare?
Summer.
Oh, I mean your
I
book,
don't know,
yes.
but I'm pretty upset with
Made glorious by this son of York.
Yes.
Well,
I can't wait for
how does it
summer.
go, Dr. Burton? How does it go?
Now's the winter of our discontent, made glorious by the son of York.
Oh, it is the winter of discontent, because somewhere I read season. I thought, I've always been saying winter.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, Richard III says the winter of our discontent, but the girlfriend in this novel says, that she's going to be separated from her boyfriend, and she says, years from now we'll laugh about this separation and we'll call it the summer of our discontent. So.
Nice. Thank you for the tidbits.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Is that coming out on paperback, or are we going to expect that one also on audiobook?
I don't have any audiobooks. I would really like to put these ones I have on audio, because I always said I would do audiobooks because my mother went blind, and she was a great reader and relied on, back then it was books on tape.
Yes.
So she relied on them, and she read.
Yeah, they're really nice.
Are you on Amazon? Are you on Amazon?
Yes.
Amazon, I've been doing it. All my books are now on audio. They're doing a free program, beta program, where they will do an audiobook for audiobooks of all your books for free. And you can pick English, male, female, American, all of that. So all my books are now in audio, and they're selling. They actually are selling, and it's only been like a week. So you might want to do that,
Yeah, when I go to book signings, people say, "Do you have audiobooks?" Because people like to read them or listen to them in the car. And
yeah, they do.
Now, if you're not using Amazon, I've got a few podcasters who are actually doing voiceovers for books and reading for books. If you're looking for the old-fashioned way like that, or Rob, the way that you're doing it, is it like an AI voice or is it a human voice?
It sounds human, but I'm assuming it's AI. But I mean, if the English, I'm using an English voice for like my cozy murder mystery set, The Constables, and that is a British.
It's getting really hard to distinguish that it's getting so good now.
Yes,
yeah,
that's
but
true.
sometimes they make mistakes. They'll say a certain word the wrong way, completely the wrong way. I mean,
yes, and the pacing of the phrasing is sometimes awkward, but give it a couple of years, and I mean, look
the
at
pacing was pretty good, and the emphasis is incredible. It's like
really okay.
I was really amazed. Yeah, it's scary, But that's a great idea for a book. I think I'll write it and use AI to get it written before you do yours to get mine published. Actually, I think what you're writing is actual literature, and I'm no good at that. I just don't have the propensity for writing anything really good like that. I have.
Dean, you want to give a shout out to the folks listening around the world on UPRN where they can find your books? And I've got, let's see, you know what? I don't think I have the banner pulled up throughout this whole episode. Oops, here we go. There it is. You can find everybody's website there on the banner on the bottom. And do you want to give any shout outs to any of your subscribers or your fans? Now's the time.
I do have a website. It's www.deanallanconrad.com. It's Allan, ALAN. And I have an Instagram page and a Facebook page, and my books are available at the Haunt Coffee Paranormal Coffee Shop in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, the Schuylkill County Historical Society, Otto's Bookstore in Williamsport, Ingram's Park if you're a store or a library, and other places, and of course Amazon.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Dean, for telling everybody where to find your stuff.
Thank you for having me
on the show tonight. And Rob, do you want to give a shout out to where folks can find your stuff?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon, or you can find it on what was that I just heard?
It was a drum roll.
Oh,
sorry. They've got sound effects now. Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
we do.
Lots of stuff to play with.
Amazon and Simon & Schuster, Permuted Press, and there is some other independent publications. But yeah, I'd go with Amazon. You can get everything there, or almost everything. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And Dr. Burton, how about yourself? Do you want to give a little shout out to where folks can find your stuff?
Sure. The easiest way is to go to burtonbeyond.net, and you'll find the coursework that I offer, and you can get my books there. I'm in the process of moving my catalog over to Amazon right now. But yeah, people can, I just got on Substack about a month ago, and people can subscribe there and get the newsletter and all kinds of free articles.
Nice. Thank you. Well, do you guys want to give one more shout out to your fans before we peace out?
I only have the one, so.
Thank you. So I want to thank everybody again for being on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM out on that Gulf. Thank you again for being on UPRN tonight and for being such a great guest, Dean. Everybody follow Dean Allan Conrad, Dr. Judd Burton, and Rob Shelsky. And we're going to leave now with a little bit of Bob Team music.